This is Johnny with Tiger Bomb MMA, and tonight I'm going over UFC Fight Night, Cara France versus Albazi, giving you my thoughts, predictions about the whole card. Interesting overall card. To be frank, I'm not truly interested in betting it. There's a couple spots that I might consider, a couple underdogs that I might just play. Nothing serious, but it just gives me the impression of like one to skip. And I've said that about a few cards, and I actually made some money on those goofy cards. So we'll see what happens come fight night. But just giving my thoughts on it, I'm not too overly impressed. I'm going to do a very basic breakdown of these fights, giving you my like Tapology page because yeah, I didn't think it was really worth me going all that way to like get pictures of the guys. And also my computer's been acting a bit funny. My camera's not working all that great. So my whole setup has been kind of jacked up. Like it almost feels like it's being hacked, if we're being honest. So I've had a lot of issues with the internet, and I've had a lot of issues just with my computer in general, which I thought is strange. And it all started happening a few weeks ago when I invited somebody on, and it kind of sucks. But let me get started with the first fight of the night here. We've got Maxim Grishan versus Felipe Lins. Oh crap, what's going on here? Oh no. Oh, the dude's back. Oh my god. Dog Hunter's back, everybody. He took over my computer. He's pointing at me, okay? I mean, can't hate on him like the glasses. Right, dude? What do you want? I like, oh my god, he's banging a fucking tranny tiger. I can tell that boat comes right off. That's a male tiger, okay? What are you doing, dude? Oh, yeah, bite. Oh, cut him off, man. Jesus Christ. This is what I'm talking about, man. Like, I can't do my job entertaining people when this type of stuff comes up. And it just feels as if it's going to keep happening. And I don't even know if I want to keep doing this, but let's just break these down. Maxime Grisham versus Felipe Lins. And currently the odds have it in favor of Maxime Grisham minus 145. Come back on Felipe Lins is a plus 120. And they're both older gentlemen, right? Light heavyweight bout. I like Grisham in the sense that I think he's a more complete fighter, very solid kickboxing, very good grappling to an extent. I don't know how great his grappling is, but I've seen him fight Tybura at heavyweight and kept his own. Right, he wasn't getting taken down. He essentially broke William Knight, in my opinion. Like a lot of people thought Knight was going to win that fight, and I think I took Grisham as high as like minus 170. And for Felipe Lins, I don't really know where he's at with his career. I know he's been looking semi-impressive since dropping down to light heavyweight. Got a nice little haircut, nice abs now. And I don't know if he's got truly knockout power. I know in the past at heavyweight he was knocking dudes out in like PFL, but at light heavyweight, I don't know how good his power is. I know he knocked out OSP. I just think surprisingly with the slight youth advantage for Felipe Lins, I just think he's able to edge out this decision. Although I do like Maxime Grisham, I don't know if I want to lay, although it's minus 145 chalk, I just don't particularly like betting an older man in this situation. I know they tend to go longer when they are in a higher weight class, but I just feel as if Felipe Lins might be feeling himself a little bit more right now. He feels a little bit more, what's the word, confident in himself and his power. I don't necessarily like the way he was swinging those wild punches against OSP, and I feel like he can get possibly cracked here. But if he uses a grappling based attack here, tries to go for takedowns, more use a jujitsu based wrestling attack instead of just like going and shooting and clinching, like maybe pull guard. We'll see. I don't know. Like I know black belt Felipe Lins is something, but I've never really seen him all too impressive on the ground. But I feel as if he can edge this fight, and I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be really close, and one of these two is going to edge it out. And I hope that it's Felipe Lins, but I'm not betting on this one. Next bout, Luan Lacerda versus Damon the Monster Blacksheer. Minus 144. Lacerda come back on Blacksheer is plus 115. It's going to be a black belt battle between these two. The issue is that Damon Blacksheer has terrible wrestling, defensive wrestling. And I don't know if he has the striking to really do anything to Luan, because Lacerda, he throws with a lot of power, even though he's not technically sound. Trains at Novo now. I believe I remember correctly is that Jose Aldo is like one of his mentors. I just feel as if this is his fight to lose, and he can definitely lose it. I mean, Damon's not a terrible guy off of his back. Like we saw in his last fight, he kind of pulled off a near last second triangle choke on the smaller Basharat. Like, he's solid. Like, I like Damon. I know he's very skilled. It's just that everything else around him isn't as good as his jiu-jitsu. And he's kind of like a dollar store Kroger brand version of Aljamain Sterling, just without the really imposing wrestling. I think this is Lacerda's fight to lose. I think it's going to be a really back and forth, entertaining scrambling battle, but with Luan always getting the better of them. I mean, can Damon get the submission? I believe so. It's like with certain black belt battles, right? You're like, oh, I don't really want to take it to the ground. Like, Damon seems like so confident on the ground that, like, he doesn't care how dark your black belt is, that he'll go after him because his skin is darker. So I'll go with Luan Lacerda by decision here. I just think that on the feet, Lacerda isn't as out of place as Damon. Damon just kind of throws to throw, very much so like Aljamain. So I'll go with Lacerda by a decision here. This bout, I hate it so much because, like, it instantly screams that Elise Reed should win. It's at strawweight. Elise Reed minus 135. Jinyu Frey, the love of my life, is a plus 110. I really like Jinyu Frey, period. I'll probably pick her every single time just to pick her. But there are certain occasions where I'm like, I think she's got a good chance to win here. And I think this is one of those occasions. She got knocked out pretty bad her last fight, and not like got starched and stiffened. Like, she just got frozen midair and then she fell backwards and came back to life, which was like, in certain cases, that is probably worse than getting put out cold. It's like something's going on there. Elise Reed's got really good combinations, really good hands. Defensively, when it comes to the wrestling, not great. Jinyu Frey, very decent grappler, good enough to hold down Elise Reed, get the body triangle, pound her out, get her tired. And that's what I'm going to go with. It's just, I know Elise Reed, this is her fight to lose, right? Like, instantly when I saw the matchup, I'm like, yeah, I think Elise Reed's probably going to knock. She's got good power at strawweight. It's just that wrestling is going to be a huge factor. And the way fights are being judged, sometimes you can have a big moment, but as long as you have enough control time, enough positional advantage, you can win the fight. And I think Jinyu Frey, as long as she doesn't get too severely hurt, she can win this fight. And it's not like she's a terrible striker. She's a very good kickboxer. It's just that I think Elise Reed's boxing, her hands are better. So I will go with Jinyu Frey by a decision. If she gets a submission along the way, that'd be great. But dog money, if you're interested, if I could stay away, don't even bother on this one. I'm like trying to convince people to bet Jinyu Frey. That's a stupid idea. Let's move on. We've got Daniel Willie Catch Santos, bantamweight bout against Johnny Munoz Jr. And we've gone over this one. Like, everyone and their grandma's cats have the Willie Cat. Minus 200, though. Come back on Johnny Munoz is a plus 165. Now, to give credit to Munoz, he's not a terrible fighter. It's not like he's going to get blown out of the water. There's a chance he will, but it's not like it's going to happen in the first minute. His boxing's getting better. His jiu-jitsu, solid black belt in jiu-jitsu. I think he's got a wrestling advantage, although Willie Cat Santos' takedown defense has gotten pretty good. He had a really good fight his last fight out, Willie Cat, that is, and he knocked out John Castenada, who I think is he's a solid guy. This is kind of a step down for Willie Cat, and I think he's going to knock out Johnny Munoz, I think, in the second round. The issue here is that I don't necessarily trust Munoz's chin. Now, that's kind of like an X factor there. Like, he got knocked out by Tony Gravely, and he's been working on his boxing, right? Especially in Mexico. And I always kind of joke, like, he's working on his Mexican boxing, but he unfortunately doesn't have the Mexican chin. If he can come out here and protect himself defensively, land good shots, avoid getting taken down, he's got a good chance to win. Johnny Munoz, that is. I think he has a lot of potential. He's 30 years old. I thought he was younger, honestly. I thought he was like 22, but he's still relatively young, and he can make those adjustments to be a type of guy that can upset people like Daniel Santos. To me, though, the X factor for Daniel Santos is that he has an unquenchable desire to win. We saw it in his last fight. He moves forward, and if he pressures you, and that's what I really like about Willie Santos, is his pressure. He comes after you, whether it be trying to wrestle the wrestler or trying to take his head off, he'll come after you. And I think that's what's going to be the deciding factor here, and what's going to kind of cause Johnny Munoz to break. Hate to go against another not Johnny here, but I got to go with Daniel Willie Catch. Next bout, Andre Arlovski versus Don'Tale Mayes. To keep it brief, like plus money on Arlovski, he's probably going to win a decision against Dontel Mays. Mays doesn't tend to have the power at heavyweight. He's only beaten bums. Boy, howdy, how he's only beaten bums in the UFC. And dude, like Dontel Mays got submitted by a heel hook by Cyril Gane, and that made me believe, like, oh my God, Cyril Gane is this jiu-jitsu ace. Not really, but And yeah, I think Arlovski, his style right now is just good to beat these kind of guys, lower level guys, guys that don't have enough power and not a lot of threat. Dontel can knock out Arlovski. It's not like Arlovski's chin is made out of titanium now that he's like past 40. It's just that he's been more defensively sound and doesn't take too many risks. But when he does take those risks, he does them in a calculated manner when you're not expecting them because he hasn't done shit for majority of the round. Blitzes you and does enough to steal the rounds, and I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to win by a decision. Can he knock out Mays? I don't know. I truly don't know. I don't think Mays has ever been knocked out. He's been dropped, I believe. I just don't think Arlovski's going to really put too much into these shots. He's going to reserve his gas tank to go all 3 rounds. He probably bet on himself to win by decision, so I'll do the same. Arlovski by decision. Next bout, John Castenada versus Munoz Gafurov. And to keep this one brief, like I'm not going to crap on John Castenada because he got TKO'd his last fight. Like apparently he was sick and he looked solid. Like going back and rewatching the fight, my memory was like he was beating Willie Cat's ass, which technically he was. He was dropping him multiple times, but he wasn't really beating him. Like he just kind of caught Willie Cat, and then he took advantage of that, and then he didn't take advantage of it, was losing the fight again, then he dropped him again. And it kind of showed like he's developing his power. And that's a big criticism I had of him in the past. He didn't tend to have a whole ton of power in his punches, but he's working his striking at Bang Tao, Thailand. And this is going to be a short notice fight for Gafurov. Gafurov is an interesting character because he, on paper, is solid Sambo, combat Sambo champion. He throws heavy. He isn't afraid to kind of throw spinning techniques or anything crazy. He's got solid everything. It's just that he has something about him. Like I keep mentioning X factors. I think he's got a little bit of fight IQ issues. I don't really know how to explain it, but like going back and watching his fight with Angeliger, I feel as if he kind of gassed himself out and Angeliger took over. And in this fight where the wrestling is probably going to cancel each other out because Castaneda is a solid wrestler from Minnesota, if it stays on the feet, I think Castaneda's striking is much slicker than Gafurov, but Gafurov throws with such intensity and power that there's a chance he could hurt Castaneda. And Castaneda, funny enough, has a kind of a cast iron chin. Like you can say all you want about him getting knocked out by Willie Cat. His chin seemed fine. It almost seemed like a TKO via too many accumulative shots that he was eating almost no problem. And this guy has a solid Mexican chin. I think he might come out here looking better than ever. It just really depends on the short notice abilities of Gafurov. I've seen him gas, and I've seen him destroy lower level guys in the LFA. I have to go with Castaneda. I know Gafurov himself has a pretty solid chin, but I think the better, stronger, harder shots, possibly even the sneaky takedowns from Castaneda are really going to throw off Gafurov, and Gafurov is going to lose this decision. The odds, I don't have them out yet, but I think I saw someone, I saw a tweet from somebody saying that he was like a minus 150. So that's not terrible. We'll see if the line movement comes out and it goes in the favor of Gafurov. I'm staying away from it, so I'm not really going to pay too much attention to it, but I'll go with Castaneda by a decision. Next bout, we've got Elizeu Zaleski, Capoeira Zaleski versus Abubakar Nurmagomedov. And currently the odds are even, minus 110, minus 110. And I agree with those odds. The issue where it comes down to is that which version of Zaleski are we going to see, right? Like I've seen this guy in the past, but he's only fought strikers essentially. Like going back, I rewatched a lot of his fights, and most of his fights where he's fighting strikers, he's the better striker. There's a certain few occasions where he's not the better striker because of like certain X factors. Like for example, Leech Jing Liang knocked him out in China because Zaleski's boxing isn't great. His kickboxing and everything else is fantastic. Even his jiu-jitsu and his wrestling, everything is good. It's just that the boxing's always been the issue. When it goes back down to, for example, back in 2016, he fought Omari Akhmedov. That was one of the very true wrestlers that he fought. And I thought he passed that with flying colors. He finished him in the 3rd round with knees, stuffed takedowns. This is a Zaleski coming off of a year and a half layoff, and he's fighting a Babukar Nurmagomedov. Although he's not the best Nurmagomedov, he's got a few things going for him. Decent enough boxing, like solid jab. He's got the wrestling, but the little issue with the wrestling is that he can kind of put himself in bad positions to get submitted. Like he leaves his head there for the guillotine, and I'm worried about that here. I think that's why it's the minus 110. I have to go with, unfortunately, Babukar Nurmagomedov to win this one by a decision. I think he's going to show Zaleski that, like, although he's been away and he's the lesser Nurmagomedov, he can at least close that gap in skill, because skill wise, Zaleski's got it. He's faster, at least from what we know of him. He's got the better striking at distance, but I think with the hands up close, Babukar might have some success, and that's what I'm kind of worried about as well. Like, there's a good chance Babukar can knock out Zaleski, because you're not expecting the boxing coming from Babukar Nurmagomedov. Like, it's impressively crazy to say that this Babukar Nurmagomedov's boxing has improved, and it's like, okay. So I'll go with Babukar by decision. I hate to say it though. I really would like to see Zaleski come back here. He's a fun guy to watch, right? Like, it pains me to see him getting older. He's 36. He's about to turn 37 this year. And will he be as quick? I mean, Babukar is only 33. I know it's not all that crazy in difference in age, but sometimes 3 years is enough to really defeat the better fighter. Next bout, Kutateladze opening up the main card versus Jamie Mullarkey. And the minus 340 on Kutateladze is a bit of a warning sign for me. Comeback on Jamie Mullarkey plus 260 is quite interesting. The reason for it is that those odds say that Garam's going to come in here and just blast Jamie Mullarkey and finish him relatively quickly within 2 rounds, in my opinion. And I don't know if that's really the case. Garam has shown impressive technique, kickboxing wise, but I think the most impressive thing is his takedown defense. And let's really dissect that. Is Jamie going to really shoot for takedowns? No, it's going to be a striking battle. He might shoot for takedowns. If anything, I think Garam's going to be the one shooting for takedowns, because he's obviously training with Hamzat out at All Stars. But how is this striking? So I went back and I rewatched, because I have that in my head of, like, maybe Garam is a future title challenger, right? Like, he seems like it. But the big issue that I had was his fight with Damir. Damir Ismagulov was popping him back with the jab. He busted him up pretty badly with the jab, and he didn't really seem to hurt Damir Ismagulov. Like, he was landing, he was winning rounds or minutes of the rounds, but I think the more impactful shots were those straight jabs from Damir Ismagulov. And it kind of made me realize, like, damn, Garam's got great kickboxing. He's great on the outside, great at forcing fighters to fight his fight, which is the kickboxing. But his boxing itself is a little suspect, right? Like, boxing defense itself, it just seemed a bit off to me. I'm like, Jamie, say what you will about him, he's got good boxing, very fundamentally sound, very educated left hook, left hand itself, decent enough jab, but he's not very fast. He's not as fast as Damir. I don't think that matters, because he has that ridiculous grittiness to him that I think he's got a good chance here to bust a lot of parlays. And I am very deathly afraid of taking Garam Kutateladze. And this is the general thing that happens. You bet a guy like this, you parlay him up in every single one of your parlays, and then he gets taken down, and you're like, oh, it's fine, he'll get back up. He gets back up, and then Jamie Mullarkey lands a solid punch that cuts him. So now you're like, okay, it's fine, he'll come back in the second round. He lost the first round. Same kind of thing happens, and Garam is slowly losing this fight just by mere inches and mere punches. And then you're like, he was never good to begin with. I don't want to be a part of that. I'll stay away from Garam. I think he should win this one by a decision. He should, in theory, knock out Jamie, but Jamie obviously has a great chin. Great recovery is the biggest thing. And he's got a dog spirit in him that is just so hard to fade sometimes. Like, you fade him when you think a super ridiculous power puncher can catch him and knock him out, because there's a good chance that could happen, which I did with Prado his last fight. I'm like, hey, fuck it, why not? Like, let's test this kid out. Didn't work out, but in this case, a more technical guy who likes to be on the outside, who may or may not have ridiculous types of power, I think I'm going to stay away from it. Period. I won't bet it. I'll go with Kutateladze, but in reality, I might take a shot on Jamie Mullarkey to see because I get a weird, suspicious feeling because like Jamie's he's a dog. He, he's in the same type of caliber of like a Justin Gaethje, right? Like, give him time, let him develop. He's only 28. Let him get a little bit better, and he might surprise a lot of people. But again, he's very unathletic. Yeah, I'll go with Kutateladze by decision, staying away. Next bout, flyweight, Karine Silva versus Ketlin Souza. And Killer Souza is, to me, a very good prospect. There's some things I want to see her clean up a little bit, but very solid prospect, very dangerous. She's killer for a reason. She's minus 225, come back on Souza plus 175. I believe Souza is the LFA champion at flyweight. Frankly, don't remember, don't really care. There's some good things about her and some things I'm not too overly impressed by. Let me check my notes here. So Souza, black belt in jiu-jitsu, don't really see it often. She's more of a striker, likes to keep it on the feet. Good cardio, good pop in her punches, but not a whole ton of power. I think her best quality is if she can keep it on the feet, she throws a lot and overwhelms her opponents. Not a lot, like, oh my God, look at the crazy volume, but enough to like kind of try to force her opponents to shoot on her where she would stuff them and then she'll take over there. Karine Silva is, to me, going to be just too much for her. Her takedown defense, Souza, that is not impressive. I think Karine, her striking is good enough. It's really hard to say who has a better striking. I think Silva's striking is necessary enough where she can, do enough on the feet to get it to the ground, where she's just much better than Souza. But Souza, on the other hand, I think she uses her grappling in reverse to keep it on the feet. And because the striking of Souza isn't like ridiculously threatening, I think Silva might get cracked a few times, but it really wouldn't affect her or deter her from like keep moving forward and going for a takedown, which I think she's going to get pretty easily. She might get stuffed possibly once or twice, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think it's going to be a matter of time before she gets to the ground and submits Souza. And I'm going to go with round number 2. The issues with Silva is that her cardio seems a little bit suspect. So the way she loses this fight is if she can't get the takedown and it becomes a striking battle where she is getting popped to the body. My notes here say that like Souza has a really good body kick. I think it's a left kick to the body that if it lands flush on the belly of Silva here, it could cause issues for people's bets. So I might just prop it up and go with submission for Souza or inside the distance. But again, I'm not too eager to bet this one. So Souza for me, second round submission. This one is tough at flyweight. Tim Elliott versus Victor Altamirano, minus 175 for Elliott. Come back on Altamirano, plus 145. So if you don't know about Tim Elliott, fuck. There's a certain caliber or not caliber. There's a certain type of pornography that you can look up. Certain people like to, say, for example, hire people or have their wives go out and find someone to possibly take home. And then there's like a nice cushy seat that a person can sit down as they watch. Poor Tim Elliott, man. I feel bad for the guy. It really sucks. And although I don't want to bring that up too much, it is a factor here. How's his mental state going to be after what happened with his wife and his training partner, best friend, or whatever? Is he going to come out here looking like Mackenzie Dern, like her last fight, taking out all her aggression out on Victor Altamirano, or is he going to gas himself out? Too many factors. Like Tim Elliott should win this fight if he's smart. There's just too many negative factors impacting Tim Elliott. That's not to say that he can't win this fight. I think technically he's a better fighter. I think he's got a better chance to win, primarily by a decision. Victor Altamirano, he's very good, definitely very good. I've seen him go out there, put on good performances. He's fought good wrestlers in the past. It's just, to me, like a guy who beat Tajir Ulanbekov and the way he beat him with his veteran tactics, it's quite impressive, to be honest. As much as I hate saying it, it's like he got the job done. At the end of the day, he got the job done. And I think he can get the job done here against Victor Altamirano if he comes out here looking decent, not crumbling mentally or anything like that. So we shall see what happens in this fight, but I've got Tim Elliott to win this one by a decision. Next bout, we've got at lightweight Jim Miller versus Jared Gordon. This one's a interesting bout because at lightweight we've got Jared Gordon minus 250 come back on Jim Miller plus 200. Jared Gordon got knocked out recently pretty badly. He got headbutted. It was overturned, obviously, but your brain doesn't overturn that as well. It's like that didn't happen. Okay, it was illegal, boys. Brain cells come back. That's a big factor here in this fight against Jim Miller. Jim Miller is a guy that surprisingly, and I'll get to like my overall point with Jim Miller, but he's a solid guy, good jiu-jitsu, obviously, great jiu-jitsu. Power in his punches. It's just that he's getting older. He's nearly 40 years old. That's a big thing here against the 34-year-old younger man, Jared Gordon, who has quite frankly impressed me over the years at how much better he's gotten at fighting. He's not a great fighter, but he's good at winning fights. My issue is with Jared Gordon getting recently knocked out. Jim Miller throws a lot of power, and he can knock out a lot of guys. And I think Jim can possibly knock out Jared Gordon. And I've heard some rumblings about like people taking a guy who just recently got knocked out, and I don't know where this like disdain for Jim Miller went. Like Jim Miller, a lot of people were on him his last fight against. Well, that sucked. A lot of people were on him on his fight with Hernandez, and predicting he would knock him out, and it didn't happen. So now, like, Jim Miller sucks. I think Jim Miller has a good chance here. It's not a great chance, but it's a good enough chance for him to actually beat Jared Gordon and catch him with something. It's realistically, Jim Miller only has that knockout to win, but I think he can surprise a lot of people here and knock out Jared Gordon. Realistically, though, how I truly see this fight happening is that I think Jared Gordon's going to be defensively sound. He is going to do his typical Jared Gordon thing, going forward, throwing decent enough punches. I mean, he was pretty defensively sound against Bobby Green until he got headbutted, of course. He didn't see that one coming. It's just that with him being recently knocked out, 3 weeks ago, I'm worried that if I take Jared Gordon and he's whipping the ass of Jim Miller and Jim Miller just pops him once with something clean, Jared's going to just like go on meltdown mode and his brain's just going to shut off. That's what I'm most worried about. Like, realistically, I should pick Jared Gordon to win this one. I'm not in the game just to be like, oh, I'm going to take what's safe. I think there's a good chance Jim Miller can win this one by a knockout or submission based off of like if he hurts him enough with something, wobbles him, and he jumps on the neck type of thing. Like I've said it in the past, like Jim Miller is the type of guy that can knock you out accidentally while he's trying to submit you. So I'll go with Jim Miller with a second round TKO knockout. This bout, co-main event, Alex Bruce Leroy Caceras versus Daniel the Pit Pineda. This is quite the unimpressive co-main event. We've got two guys that kind of share a lot in common in the sense that like they're solid fighters. They should win certain fights, and then they end up not losing or not winning those fights. And then they end up overperforming. Like I picked against Daniel Pineda against Tucker Lutz, and Tucker Lutz kind of / let me down / Daniel Pineda overperformed. Against Alex Caceras over here, when I picked him against Juicy J. Erosa, I'm like, okay, it's a matter of time until Erosa catches him with something. He's fought the better competition, and then he comes out here looking kind of spazzy on the feet, and then he lands a beautiful head kick that like just crushes Erosa and like pulverizes his chin even more than it already has. And the impressive thing about Alex Caceras is that he's going to be the taller guy, longer guy, good funky reach advantage here, right? Good kicks on the outside, good movement. But his jiu-jitsu, I think, is the more impressive thing as of late. Like he's just been demonstrating a willingness to get better with the jiu-jitsu with those long legs. I think he has a good chance to submit Daniel Pineda. Daniel, type of guy, can't really trust him, right? I can't trust either guy, but I definitely can't trust Daniel Pineda because he has power. He's got that grappling ability. He's won every single fight, I believe, inside the distance. But there's just too many questions about him. Like, did he look so good his last fight because he knows someone in the commission and they allowed him to, mask up with his agents? I don't know. I just can't take him. I have to go with Bruce Leroy Caceres. I think he can definitely get a win by finish. I just don't know how he's going to do it. Right? Like I picked. Here's the thing with Caceres. I said there's a good chance that he could submit um, Juicy J just because of how good he's gotten with his jiu-jitsu. He ends up knocking him out. Here I'm like, I think he's got a good chance to knock out Daniel Pineda, but he might submit him. So I'm just gonna take the opposite. I think he can submit Pineda, but I think more than likely he'll probably knock him out. So I'll go with second round knockout. You know what? Third round knockout for Caceres, because I think as the fight keeps going on, Pineda's just going to kind of lose steam, and that's where Caceres will take over and he'll land something on like a very tired Daniel Pineda. Main event time, we've got Kai Kara France versus Amir Albazi. So it's a pick 'em right now, -110, -110. Don't blink versus the Prince. And the biggest issue I have with this main event is that it's such a difficult one to really break down a winner, because Albazi, he's been impressive. He's on a great win streak. He's got all-time high confidence. Kai Kara France, on the other hand, has the bigger names on his record, right? Win or loss, he's fought some good competition like Brandon Royval, Bontarin, whatever, Cody Garbrandt, whatever, Askar Askarov, and then lost to the champ in Brandon Moreno. He was winning that fight against Brandon the second time until he got hit in the liver. And it wasn't like, he got hit in the liver once and he went down. Like, frankly, going back, Brandon Moreno was targeting that liver from the beginning, and it just eventually caught up with him. But the way he was like hurting, not necessarily hurting, because he never really wobbled Moreno, but like he busted up his face. Kai Kara France has good striking. His power, I think, is a little bit overrated at flyweight. He can definitely knock out a lot of guys, and I think he can knock out Albazi. It's just that I don't necessarily think he's got like ridiculous power. Like last guys he's knocked out are Cody Garbrandt with a very light, fluid-filled brain at flyweight, and Rodrigo Bontarin, who to this day is one of my favorite knockouts of all time, where he like knocks him out with an uppercut. He does the victory lap and he goes back and he's like, I still laugh at it every time. Albazi, though, my issue with Albazi is that I always suspected him of being kind of a bit of a fraud. And like the Shorty Torres fight, when he fought him, when did he fight him? I just want to put a date on it. So I'm like, am I really going to take a fight that happened in 2019 and hold that against him? I did for quite a long time. I'm like, I think there's certain guys in this division that could really expose Albazi. And the thing about exposing a guy is that you have to expose him when that area is there to be exposed. And I thought it was his striking. Like if he has to wrestle, I think he might be cooked here, because if he has to wrestle and he's forced to strike, he's going to be uncomfortable. I think as of late, he's gotten a lot more comfortable with the striking, where he doesn't need to go for a takedown. He doesn't absolutely have to go for it. Like he got to knock out his last fight against, newcomer in Costa. What was it? Alessandro Costa. And I think that might really fuel his ability here, is to be like, yeah, my hands are getting better. I've got good power in my punches. Why not try to strike with Kai Kara France? Let's test out how his power is and be like, I can probably take his shots. If Albazi can take the shots of Kai Kara France and pressure him, land some good shots of his own, like Kai Kara has been hurt and wobbled in the past, I think he's not impervious to getting knocked out. I think Albazi has a good chance to win. But in the opposite end, if Kai Kara France can really eat the shots of Albazi and disregard him, move forward, essentially have a very similar plan like he did against Garbrandt, just push him back, land at will, I think that's the most dangerous Kai Kara France ever. Like a guy that is like, F your punches, I'm coming after you. And Albazi, if he can't take him down, which it's a good possibility he can't, Kai Kara France's takedown defense is tremendously improved. This is another guy whose like most impressive attribute as of late. It used to be his knockout, quote unquote, power, but now it's more of his takedown defense, his ability to move forward and just like kind of pressure guys and bully them. that's really where it comes down to. If Kai Kara France cannot bully Amir Albazi, I think Albazi in a 5-round fight can win. But if Albazi is getting bullied and he's not able to get takedowns or really implement a solid striking strategy, I think Kai Kara France is eventually going to catch him. It is a tough matchup in reality because I do see prospect material in Albazi. I do see a lot of positive things in him. He's ranked number 7 in the world, but he hasn't beaten really anybody. Kai Kara France has beaten some good guys, but that doesn't always mean he's not capable of losing to an up and coming guy. A guy can show up one day and just wreck the division like a Hamzat. I'm not comparing Albazi to Hamzat, but he's got good qualities in him. It's just that there's certain things that I wanted to see him clear up, and I think he is slowly closing those gaps. And there's a good chance Albazi can come out here and have a ridiculously good performance against Kai Kara France and kind of staple himself as in, give me that title shot. Or Kai Kara France is going to expose a guy. For me, though, like logically, this one's really tough to break down, like to make a prediction. And the thing is, it's not like one guy is completely older. I'm going to go reluctantly with Kai Kara France to win this one by a knockout. Again, I think he's got the knockout power. I'm not confident in this pick. This could be a really good live betting situation, right? If Kai Kara France gets taken down, which like his takedown defense is great, but it's not like he can't get taken down. If he gets taken down and Albazi takes his back, like Albazi's jiu-jitsu is quite impressive. Like he submitted a quote unquote black belt as himself a purple belt. We'll see what happens here. I'll take Kai Kara France by 3rd-round knockout. Again, I'm not confident in this entire card, more so this fight, because this is just one of these fights I just want to watch. I don't even want to break it down. I just want to watch it and just be surprised at what happens. So I'll go with Kai Kara France to win this one by a 3rd-round knockout, and we'll see what happens. But overall, I'm not too interested in this card betting wise. Like again, I'll probably take what's his name? Arlovski, and there's one other person. Yeah, I might do a parlay with Dos Santos, Willie Cat, and Arlovski. I think it was like plus 200 when I last checked. So I might do that, or I might just bet them separately. But yeah, overall, probably stay away. We'll see what happens. Like there's quite a few cards that I'm like, I'm not going to bet on it, and I make like 4 units on it. So we'll see what happens, man. Sometimes I'm quite lucky. But yeah, those are my thoughts on this entire card. Like, share, whatever, comment, join Discord, whatever. Yeah, we'll catch you next site, and then it's going to be a pay-per-view, so hopefully I have some fun in store for that. So see you next time.